If you're ready for freedom from the grind, then passive income from real estate investing is the best way to get you there. If you don't know where to start or what to do next, then the Rent Roll Radio Show is the best place to get you there. Join us while we discuss the best practices, strategies, and mindset you'll need and give you actionable content to get you from where you are to where you want to be.
Hey, Rural Radio listeners, I am not your host as always. Filling in for Sterling Chapman is Cole McKnight, and I'm here with Luke Carl. Luke, how are you doing today?
Dude, I am great, man. It's good to be alive. A wonderful day, and I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate and what you do?
Yeah, man. So story begins, in the early days, I came from a tiny little town in the Midwest and grew up in a very humble, household, and got hooked on rock and roll when I was really young and kind of just like that freedom. I like the freedom of it, and the whole thing. And ended up moving to New York City when I was 20 years old, ended up in the bar business, owned 25% of a little rock and roll bar in Manhattan when I was 25 years old. Long story short, I met a girl from the South. We moved to the South, and then we started buying real estate simply because we could. I lived in New York for so long, you couldn't afford. There was nothing, you couldn't buy anything. And then all of a sudden, we were living in Tennessee, and it was like, wait a minute, let's check this real estate thing out. We can buy a house, And this was like 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. So we bought a house. Simple as that. Got hooked instantly, my wife and I, and the rest is history. We just grew it from there. And my wife is Avery Carl. She's quite frankly one of the biggest real estate agents in history. She's got a big team called the Short Term Shop, which I do work for her as well. Kind of one of two day jobs for me, I would say, and the other is my rental real estate, which I've got a little bit of everything these days. It's been a long journey with a lot of hard work to get where I'm at. A lot of early mornings and just doing my best to crush it and get to kick and scream to where I'm at. And today I've got a little bit of everything. I've got, of course, the vacation homes are kind of our bread and butter. And then I've got apartments back home in my hometown, and I've got single family and duplex long terms in a couple of different markets in the Southeast. So quick as I could make that, that's a little bit about me.
Yes, sir. So let's travel back in time a little bit to that 2010, 2011 time period, where I know you said your wife was a realtor, but I know a handful of realtors who aren't the most real estate investing savvy. Sure, they know how to buy and sell a house, but they don't know all about the ins and outs of actual real estate investing. So where did y'all get that initial education? How did you learn? What books were you reading? What were you listening to? How did that start?
Man, again, it was just an accident originally for me. And I'm not an agent. Wifey's a big agent. I've never sold a house, but, I'll consider myself a buyer, really. I'm really a landlord. So it was that transition from an expensive place to a place where you could buy a house. And then we just got obsessed, and that seems to be pretty common because it's very easy to get obsessed with this thing called real estate. And so we just got knee deep, and she instantly gravitated towards the sales side of thing. And she actually, even years before that, she said, I think I want to get my real estate license. And she just became good at it basically by learning everything we learned and our trials and tribulations and dealing with tenants and guests and evictions and all this other, stuff that comes with it. You just get good at it. And after our first couple of houses, that's when the education portion came in, of course, the Purple Book, I always have it nearby, that's where everybody kind of starts. And after 2 or 3 houses, I discovered that book. And then, of course, back then it was, I think it was around episode 70 of the Bigger Pockets podcast, which was my very first experience with podcasts. Back in the day, and I just got obsessed and made it my mission to learn every teeny tiny little detail about this gig, and it grew from there.
Awesome. So real quick, because you brought the Purple Book up, my cousin, he works at a plant, and he's like, dude, why haven't you told me about real estate? Like, what what's stopping you from telling me and like me doing this stuff? And I said, look, dude, you gotta be a little bit proactive, and you gotta go out and learn some of this on your own and come back to me with questions, and we'll bounce things off. But like, here, take Rich Dad Poor Dad, read it, and then after you have a basis of knowledge, like, let's talk about it. So can you tell our listeners like how important that first educational piece is and what you learned from Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah, Rich Dad is the it's the good book for real estate investing. It really is, and you got to reread it every now and then. And the truth is most of the principles in the book are pretty simple. But really, what it was for me, it was an eye-opening experience in the way that in the form that I could just like I all of a sudden this thing made sense now. It was tangible. These ideas and principles kind of existed in my brain, but I never dreamed in a million years that they actually existed in real life because of the way I was brought up. I was brought up, very, very humble, blue collar household. And my folks and nobody in my family really knew it had any kind of financial education whatsoever. And I knew that there was something else out there for me. I knew that I wanted to live a little bit of a different life. Nothing against them; they're wonderful people, but I wanted more, and sure. I wanted to give back to everybody and to tip big at the dinner table and things like that at the restaurant. And not the fancy cars. That's not really my thing, but I do like old cars. But I'm not really like a shake it around kind of guy. But man, I wanted a better life. I wanted some freedom. I didn't want to have to worry about the man coming to me someday and saying, "Hey, we don't want your long-haired stupid ass working at this place anymore. Get out."
Mm-hmm.
And real estate is one of the very few places where you can find such a thing.
Right.
And of course, now the truth is, my friend, the hard truth is that if you want to be in rental real estate, you got to have a lot of cash. But there's other ways to do that as well, and I'm preaching to the choir right now. If you're just new to real estate and get into the whole rich dad thing, because most people that get into it are new, it can be completely overwhelming. Oh my goodness. And where am I going to get all this cash? Where am I going to get all these down payments to buy houses? It's like I could buy a yacht and have fun with it, or I can go buy an apartment building, and nobody's going to care about that, but it's good for my future, right? Either way, you still got to have a lot of dough. But the good news is we're talking about a almost $4 trillion industry here, real estate, $3.4 trillion industry. So there are many, many ways. There's a lot of money floating around, and there's many ways to make money other than just buying it and owning it. And so if you're brand new and you're scared to death, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get to the point where I've got that freedom that Luke's talking about and not having to worry about the man? There's other ways to do that. Like my wife, she became a really good agent. You could get into insurance, you could get into lending, you could get into wholesaling. If you're just starting out, maybe you could get into Airbnb arbitrage. Who knows? There's many different ways other than just rent to make money within real estate. And I don't know that I necessarily did that. I definitely bootstrapped it. It was the way I did it. Of course, Avery had the career going in real estate as well with the team, with the short-term shop. But for me, it was pinching pennies, and that's not something I'm good at, if you want to know the truth, man. But I knew that if I wanted to get to that next house and that next house and that next house, then I'd better stop spending money on stupid crap.
Right.
And that's how I did it. I went El Cheapo for a number of years. And eventually you can get a nice little snowball rolling, and it gets big enough that it just turns into this big giant locomotive.
Absolutely. That is kind of where I'm at right now. I closed on my first deal 3 weeks ago and bought a fourplex. It's actually right next to the office. So kind of in that stage where I'm saving up for another down payment. Probably close on my second deal in the next 12 months, something like that. So you're preaching to the choir right here. So it sounds
all right, hold on. Since I know that, let me help you out. Take that word "probably" right out of that sentence. Get it out of there, and figure out what the actual real. Because that's how I did it. I write goals now. I get it from Jim Collins. It's called a BHAG board, Big Hairy Audacious Goals. Jim Collins wrote Good to Great, and I got my board right above my head every day, all day, and everything on there happens. It all happens. Now, that being said, you can't just write down, I want to find a rainbow, a unicorn with rainbows all over it and write it down. You got to write down stuff that's, realistic. And what is realistic for you is that next deal at a certain date and time, give or take. And if you write that down and get rid of that, probably, I can guarantee you, man, it will happen 100%.
Sure. Smart goals, right? Short term, or what is it? Something realistic, achievable, measurable, timeline.
I don't know that one, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know that exact quote, but yep.
Let me Google it real quick.
Google it.
But it's with it's from Traction, so they've got the big hairy audacious goals, and then the short term quarterly rocks that are supposed to be smart.
Yes, Traction. Gino Wickman.
Yeah.
Which I'll be honest, I didn't know that he talked about BHAGs in Traction. And to my knowledge, that originally came from Jim Collins, but I could be wrong about that. Or maybe Gino was talking about
I think
Jim.
it's all, they all kind of bounce off each other and take bits and pieces. But SMART goals, so they're specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound.
Bam. So that's from Traction?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, if you're reading Traction, you're going to get to that next deal, guaranteed.
Yeah, so I fully intend on it to happen. I don't know what exactly that timeline will look like right now, but it's on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
So you started off with some single family houses, and then what was your next move after that?
More single families, but they ended up being vacation homes. We were living in the middle of Tennessee, and it's in Nashville at the time. This was years ago, and Nashville was blowing up, man. It was blowing up like the 4th of July. It was going crazy. Every day it was like the equity's going up, up, up. And so we bought 2 houses there, and then quickly the market went so nuts you couldn't repeat it. So we ended up moving down the road to the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee and bought a few cabins. Now I say it's very nonchalant there. It wasn't like, oh, let's go buy a few cabins because we're like high roller dudes, a couple of people, me and my wife. It wasn't like that. We pinched, every penny counted. We lived on $25 a day for a year and a half, trying to, basically just dwindle down the budget as far as we could to get every penny going towards this new goal of ours. And anyway, long story short, there is what I'm getting at is that I'm living proof that it can be done. I did it with, my dad was a mailman, and that's the way I was raised, very just normal family. And we did it, we did it. And I'm not going to say that anybody can do that, because we did kill ourselves. We're still killing ourselves, quite frankly. And we're still a long way off from, maybe a Cardone or something like that. But, we got a wonderful life now. And we're grateful. I'm grateful for all that hard work that I had to put in. But anyway, to answer your actual question, we went to the Smokies and got into vacation homes. And then of course, we started a company called the Short Term Shop, which is my wife. She's, again, it's brokered by EXP, but it's a real estate team that sells short-term rentals. And then we teach you, everything you need to know basically about how to get them up and running and on Airbnb and Vrbo and stuff like that. Get your own website going and all those kind of fun things. So that took off like crazy. Avery, she's kind of a big deal, I guess, in the world of, definitely in the world of vacation rentals. And then we did that for quite a while and lived in East Tennessee doing that, and working on the team. And then I got, this was back in the day when short terms were kind of a pain in the rear end, quite frankly. There were not like a lot of softwares, and it was like a lot of these rumors that you hear about vacation homes, short terms, Airbnbs, whatever, being more work. It definitely was more work back in the day. There were no softwares. You couldn't integrate, you couldn't connect Airbnb together at all back when I first started. And there was no way to automate messages or automate cleaners or anything like that. And so it was definitely a different time. And I got 5 of those. So at that point, I had 7 houses, and then I said, you know what, I can't do any more of these, and we shifted back to long-term single families and duplexes in Middle Tennessee, and I mean then it just goes from there, man. I mean, it's like a spider web. We ended up going back to vacation rentals and bought a few more of those on the beach in Florida. And then eventually, and this happens to everybody. If you stay in real estate long enough, you'll end up in commercial real estate. So I went into it, which is again commercial, residential, whichever way you want to call it. I ended up in multifamily apartments, and so I do try to focus my most of my time purchasing properties in apartments right now. It's a little rough right now in the current economy.
Oh yeah.
But I've got several apartment buildings, and yeah. So I mean, I've been through it all, man. A little bit of everything.
Gotcha. So were you self-managing those first 7, 10 houses?
Fantastic question. Yes, I was, and I am very grateful for that. And I continue to do it. I continue to do with a day job. Now, it wasn't a not typical 9-to-5 day job. I was on the radio, full-time satellite radio, which I still do actually part-time. But that's another thing. That's an interesting point. I had what I considered my dream job. And so most people hate their job, and that's usually how they get into real estate. How do I quit my job? They Google it. I absolutely loved my job, but there was still an element there that it wasn't, I didn't have ultimate control. So with a day job, I had the 5 vacation homes. I had the couple houses in Tennessee, in Nashville, and then I started buying duplexes in a different market in Tennessee. The market doesn't even matter at this point, but I started buying some duplexes. I think I had somewhere around 20 upper 20 units, number of doors before I hired my first property manager. And still to this day, I do manage the short terms in-house. I wouldn't say I do it myself technically. I do have 2 full-time employees, but I am, I'm the property manager, and I oversee everything on a daily basis. And it's not uncommon for me to talk to guests. I enjoy it. I want to make sure that my guests are having a good time, because with short term, it's all about customer service.
Absolutely. So what was that time like? Like, how much time were you spending at your day job? How much time were you spending out in the field managing the properties? Were you coordinating the cleaning services and all that? Like, how did you balance both jobs and your personal life?
Man, well, for one thing, we didn't have kids yet, so that was cool. I was a little younger. Didn't have quite so much gray hair, but I mean, I was just young and hungry, man. I was not going to take no for an answer. And so I built systems. To answer your question, I would say that's how I did it. And it's exactly like Traction talks about, like exactly like the E-Myth talks about. Just so happens I was good at it. Every little tiny detail became a system. If something happened, another book for you, it seems like you're up on your books anyway, but Upstream is the name of a book that I truly believe in. And really what it is like anything that's happened multiple times, you now need to get upstream, build a dam. And what I do is build a system around it. If it's something that's happening multiple times in my life, it needs a system. So that's what I did. I did the best I could with the short terms, and I only had 5 of them. And did the best I could with like the cleaners. I built my own calendar system. So eventually Airbnb and Vrbo came out with iCals. So that you could connect your iCal from one to the other, and then you would not have to worry so much about getting double booked or having to block off the calendar from one to the other. Same with Booking.com, whatever platform you're using. And so I took those calendars and dropped them into an iCal on Google Calendar, and all this. And then my cleaners didn't know how to use Gmail, so I made them their own Gmail account and gave them a password, and I grabbed their phone, put the app on their phone, and I said, "Here, check this out. Here's every time my cabin needs to be cleaned." And they were like, "Holy crap, this is awesome." And I actually stole that from another cleaner. You just learn these things as you go. I was a cleaner in my early days that she didn't actually work for me, but I knew her well. We talked pretty regularly because it's a small scene out there. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just putting the iCals, those new iCals in Gmail." And I'm like, "Dude, that is brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" So you just learn these little nuggets along the way, and just continue to build systems from there. And then eventually, with the short terms, the softwares came out and made everything super easy. Easy's not a good word with anything in real estate, but compared to the way it used to be, dude, yeah, way more efficient. Not only that, but the messages are automated now. Obviously you need to get in there and communicate with your guests, but you can automate the bulk of the junk.
Right.
And then with the long terms, I built systems there too. I was showing units, and they were 3 hours away from my house, 2.5 hours. And I had a day job, so I would build a showing system. I built a showing system. And again, it wasn't revolutionary crap. It just made my life easier. So I would do open house showings. A Saturday, everybody's got to come between 3. I made sure I had some air fresheners going. I used to put some incense and a little bit of water and throw it in the microwave. Not incense, but cinnamon stuff. What do you call that? I don't know, like at your mom's house.
Throw
it in the microwave. Potpourri.
Yeah.
Throw it in the microwave, makes the house smell really good for like an hour, right? And I just, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, if my house smells good, it'll rent better.
We do the same thing. We got a little Febreze spray bottle when we go do showings. We bring it with us, and it's the small stuff that does make the difference.
Absolutely, and that's what I did. And then eventually they came out with Tenant Turner. I was using an app called Tenant Turner, and they could let themselves in. And then I started using a management software with my long terms. Back in the day, it was Cozy. There was 100 of them. I used one for a while called Tenant Cloud. And then now, of course, it's apartments.com. But eventually I put property managers on my long terms. I'm really glad I did it myself for a number of years. It wasn't that long, maybe 2 or 3 years. But I learned a lot. And that to me was a huge deal, that a guy like me, now if you're like a wealthy dude, and you've got a big job, put it with a property manager and forget it. That's totally cool. That's not my vibe. My vibe is, the son of a mailman, and I'm going to bootstrap this thing and work my rear end off. So I'm really grateful for those few years that I self-managed the long terms, because, if you've been to eviction court and you've dealt with bed bugs and fleas and, lawsuits and the police and all this other stuff, it just makes it a lot easier when you do put a property manager on it.
Oh yeah, we are in South Louisiana, Baton Rouge specifically. So we've dealt with all of those things and some more. So I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I think that's a great way to do it, because if you just came in and hired somebody, you wouldn't know if they were doing a good job or not. You wouldn't know if they really knew how to properly manage and if they were doing exactly what you needed them to do. So you doing that those first few years really sets that foundation and allows you to be a good boss, a good property manager, and a good asset manager.
You're doing everything right, man. I love it.
Yes, sir.
What's Baton Rouge like? I've never been there.
It's great. It's home. Lived here all my life, minus 5 years for college. But the crime is getting up there, and it's kind of crazy. There's like really, really, really nice pockets, and then there's really bad pockets of town. We just so happen to manage a handful of houses in the bad pockets, so we spend a good bit of time out there in the field. But I love it. I wouldn't live anywhere else right now.
I got my wife's family's from her mom's from Lake Charles, but I don't know much about Louisiana other than driving through it. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, we got LSU here, so that's a big draw for people. Football games on Saturdays, they love that, and then we got good hunting and fishing. So when I lived in North Louisiana, that's what everybody did: duck hunting, deer hunting, all the way out there. So people love it, but I will say it is an acquired taste. So a lot of times when people come from out of town, they don't necessarily fall in love with it immediately.
My wife's from Mississippi. And again, I've come from the North, not originally, but lived in New York for many years. And then she's brought me to this place called Mississippi. I'm like, this isn't real. What is this place? And now I love it. We've got a house, and she's from Starkville, which is Mississippi State. We've got a little house there, and go visit her family every chance we get. Grits. Grits. That's the highlight.
Shrimp and grits, baby.
Oh, yeah. And crawfish.
Oh, yeah. So tell us a little bit about the transition from the single family side to the multifamily side. How did that happen?
It was just, again, like I said, natural evolution. If you stay in real estate as a buy and hold investor, you're at some point going to transition to commercial real estate, for lack of a better, most people would call multifamily residential, but anything with a cap rate, anything with an NOI, right? Anything bigger than 5 units, and that's just kind of what happened to me. Just put a zero behind it is really all I did. Now, most people end up bringing in partners and going big and syndicating and things, which is awesome. And you really can't do that with little single families because they're based on their values based on residential comps. It's not based on what the property rents for. So, in my opinion, if you continue down the road that I was going down, just keep buying and buying is, maybe not quickly, but over time and years, it's just going to happen. And for me, actually, with the short-term thing being such a huge part of my life, really probably the natural evolution should have been a hotel. But I think deep down, I'm more of a long-term guy, and the short-term thing kind of comes from my wife, and she's just incredibly good at it. And she knows how to pick out a winner of a property. She's superhuman. But I really always kind of have considered myself more of a long-term guy. And so that's where the apartments came from. It was just kind of a no-brainer. Just kind of happened.
You didn't bring any partners in for the apartments?
Nope. The apartments I own, they're not huge. But we were able to, over time, build ourselves to a point in life where that was something we could afford. And I built a system around my bank accounts based on Mike Michalowicz' book Profit First, where every single penny that gets made on the rental real estate goes back into the rental real estate. So that was one way of doing it. And of course, we have the team. The short-term shop is a giant machine at this point. And we're very proud of that. There's a lot of people working for the shops. We got 100 employees, and it's just a wonderful thing. And of course I had a day job. I still had that day job until probably about 3 years ago. I have a hard time remembering timelines. My wife's always making fun of me, but like I said, every dollar just went fuel on the fire. And one of my apartment buildings was an exchange. As a matter of fact, that very first rental house I bought outside of Nashville, I exchanged that into a 26 unit apartment building. And I did throw a little bit of cash in there on the deal too. But again, God bless Nashville. I wasn't psyched about the increase in equity, quite frankly, because I would have rather kept buying and just kept buying. But I couldn't do that. But eventually after, I think I held that house for about 7 years, I had a ton of equity there and exchanged it on, don't get me wrong, that 26 unit was a dump. It needed a lot of work. And I've owned it for 2.5 years now, and it's getting there. It's fully
almost
occupied.
Even.
It's fully occupied, which it was nowhere near that when I bought it. And a new roof will be done probably today, actually. Nice. After 2.5 years, it takes a long time. You got a big property like that. It's not like throwing a roof on a single family, but yeah, I'm in syndications too. I've done contributed some money to a couple of syndications as well. I think that's fantastic for the right candidate. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, some people want to be active, some people want to be passive. But for that 26 unit, did y'all find it off market? Did y'all go through a broker? How did that work?
That was both, actually. Matter of fact, that came from Facebook. I posted in a Facebook group. Just make sure. Really, forget, because when people say, "Oh, he posted in a Facebook group and got a deal," it doesn't work like that. What it is putting yourself out there. I was putting myself out there every which way I could get my hands on. I was sending. I remember at one point I sent every broker in town binoculars from Amazon, and I put an Amazon gift note, and it said, "I'm looking for deals."
That's clever.
And my wife was like, "You didn't make that up. Who told you to do that?" And I'm like, "No, I swear to God, I came up with that on my own." And it's so cheesy. And none of them wrote me back. Of course, this was at the peak. They were all so busy. Who cares? Or close to the peak. And so that one did come through a Facebook private message, but it was a broker. She was an agent, and she said, "Hey, I got this deal. It's coming through soon." I was actually she said she was going to keep it, but she didn't have the means, I think, to take it down at the time. And she was managing it or getting ready to start managing it or something. I don't remember. I don't really know, to be honest. But she was an agent and she was getting the listing, and she saw me, I think, on Facebook or who knows. That was how she found me or how she communicated with me. I don't know how originally she, saw that I was looking, but yeah. So that's how that came about. It was half brokerage, half just word of mouth.
That's great. That's awesome.
So I don't know that I can repeat that, but it worked out.
Yeah. We've looked into some of that, and I haven't been able to make that broker connection, but I also haven't sent him any binoculars or anything like that. So.
You're welcome to steal that idea.
Yeah, we're GPs on 5 complexes, all 3 on the East Coast and then 2 in the Houston area. So
that's great.
We were looking to acquire some new deals pretty soon, but just with the way things are going, we're kind of backing off and holding on, see what the market can do, and if we can swing out on the up and up. So we're sitting tight right now.
Well, talk to me about that. When am I going to be able to buy another apartment building? What does the market look like, in your opinion?
Not great. I think we're looking at least another 0.5 point increase in interest rates. And for multifamily specifically, I don't think it's that attractive right now. I think the mobile home and kind of like RV park space is still looking pretty attractive right now. But there's no telling what's going to happen early 24 with some people say, oh, rates are due to drop and things are going to get better at the end of an election year. Other people are saying, no, it's got no correlation. So I'm just trying to sit tight and kind of see what the future holds for now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really know. I'm not qualified to talk about current events or politics, to be honest. But yeah, I would love to grab another apartment building right now, but it's not looking all that great. So I'll just wait.
Yeah, so kind of sounds like we're in the same boat. Are you still actively acquiring the Airbnb properties or the single family houses or anything like that?
I would like to. I've made several offers on single family long terms in the last week or two. They didn't go anywhere, but you got to make a bunch of them and be active to get one. And then and the vacation homes, I'm pretty comfortable there. I've got 8 of them. Now, the vacation home's a whole different animal. There's a big element of, well, first of all, they're expensive. If you're going to buy a real deal, like in a vacation town on a beach or in a mountain, I mean, you're probably looking at like $700,000-800,000, if not more. I mean, it can definitely be done for less than that. But at this point in my career, I would want something, to take the whole family, like a 4-bedroom and in a fantastic location. So for me personally, it probably would end up being in that price range or more. And so that's a big deal to take that down. You're looking at a pretty big undertaking in your life there on one single family. Now, the cool thing about those is that you can get 30-year fixed regular old house financing on a larger, almost like a small commercial purchase price, but it's a single family, so better financing. But anyway, long story short, we're always looking. That's again, my wife's deal there. We've been talking about that more in the last couple of weeks than we have in quite some time. But it is a lot of, I mean, I'm to the point where it's kind of like, I've got as many vacation homes as I would like to have. I could probably do one more,
Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that deal is a true deal and really good, and not just throwing money here and there just to say, oh, I made a deal happen.
At this point, I'm really a lot more concerned with location and like how often my family would use it is a big deal for me. And then it can offset its expenses by renting it on the side. And of course, I already have the means to do that. I could just throw that into my systems, my management system with my team here, and let it rip. But it is it's like a little mini hotel kind of that you're adding to your portfolio. So. But yeah, for me, it would definitely be more like, where do the kids want to go for the next 15 years? That kind of thing.
Okay. Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about how your team structure is, and then how important it is to build the right team?
Yeah, I've got 2 full-timers on my end with the day-to-day management of my, my portfolio basically. And it's not easy. It's very, very, I'm not easy to work for, I would say. I expect things to be pretty much perfect all the time. And I guess I take that back. I have 3 full-timers with the bookkeeper. He's in-house. So 3. And yeah, so it took a lot of time to build that team. They are all 3 offshore. Not that makes a difference to me personally. It just kind of happened that way in the Philippines. And I would say, man, it took me my very first hire was, like kind of at the time. I mean, the job's evolved over time, but that guy that's been with me for the longest, his position, man, it took me 2.5 years, and I think 7 people hired and fired before I finally got to somebody that was capable of, hanging with me. And I take care of them, and again, it's like anything. If you want good employees, you make sure that you're treating them right. And then eventually I hired somebody to handle the messaging with my guests, the day-to-day check-ins, check-outs, handling the cleaners. And that job was also, again, it took a long time and when I say 2.5 years and 7 people, it was almost all my fault. Like, I didn't know how to hire somebody. And so you just learn from your mistakes and get better at it. And I made videos and put together like a training book. And anything that came up when I was training these folks, I would record it with Jumpshare or Loom and put it in a Dropbox. And then that way, if I had to get rid of somebody or somebody quit, I could just pass that info on to the next person, but it took me a long time to build those systems, and just basically just getting upstream again, like I said, and not taking no for an answer. So I've got my main guy. He's like my right hand man, does everything. I mean, he books my dentist appointments, and then I've got my girl that I would call her my property manager for my short terms, although I am very involved there. And then I've got a full-time in-house bookkeeper that keeps track of all the spreadsheets and the numbers.
So your right-hand guy is virtual?
Everybody's virtual. Yep.
Okay.
I've been virtual in my real life since way before COVID. I've worked from home, even my day job back in the day. It's just seamless for me. I mean, I don't see any humans, quite frankly, very often. You're the closest thing I've seen all week.
That's funny. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, you've got a great story. So let's hop into our radio round. So what is your favorite book?
Man, I'm a huge book guy, so I'm going to take this a couple different directions. Huge book guy. Favorite book, period, as far as business is concerned, would be Kiyosaki's second book, which is Cash Flow Quadrant. That's the one book that really got a hold of me. I stopped it and rewound it and played it again. I rewound sections of that book more than any book and when I say rewound, because I'm an Audible guy. So that one is number 1 on my list. But I'll throw another one at you just because I am such a big book guy. Actually, maybe a couple at you. Recent listens. And I know you're getting more than you bargained for now. Feel free to start playing the walk-off music like at the Grammys or whatever. Yeah. Die with Zero. I'm going to throw that one at you. I actually got that from Brandon Turner's podcast. Bill Perkins. That's probably my most recent favorite book. That's really top of mind. And then another one, Abundance. Deepak Chopra's latest book, Abundance, was also really good. So there you go.
That's mainly about the abundance mindset versus scarcity.
I thought that's what it was going to be, which would, of course, be Carol Dweck's book called Mindset, Abundance versus Scarcity Mindset. But honestly, it's Deepak Chopra, so it was mostly yoga, quite frankly. But I am a big yoga guy. But the entire point of the book was, stop being so damn stingy, because there is so much stuff in the world for us to have what we need. So I really like that vibe.
Gotcha. What is your favorite quote?
But man, I got 100 of them. Find the message in the mess. Mel Robbins. That's a good one. I win or I lose. I win or I learn. I never lose. Failure is the reason for my success. Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You miss 100% of the shots you never take. Michael Scott.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Yeah. I figured you were going to pick that one up.
Oh yeah.
But if I had to throw one at you that I don't know where it came from, it would be, if you can't go up, get out. And don't steal that, because I am going to write a book about that with that title at some point. If you can't go up, get out.
There you go.
Michael Scott.
And then lastly, what is your favorite thing to do outside of work?
That one I'm going to stick to, two. My kids, number one. They're the most amazing thing on the planet. Family, definitely first. Man, I wish I could hit a button and slow my kids down, because it's just so awesome every day. But for personal, I'm a big runner, huge runner. I run every morning, get my ass up early and go out and run and try and stay in shape.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. Where can our listeners find you?
TheShortTermShop.com. That's the brokerage where we help people buy and sell vacation homes. I also have a podcast called Short-Term Rental Management, which is about sharks. No, I'm just kidding. It's about managing vacation properties. So, man, I had a great time. Apologize for talking too much. I have a tendency to do that.
No, we'll link your website and your podcast in the description below. And thank you so much for joining, Luke.
My pleasure, man. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Sir.
This episode was brought to you by Crestworth Capital. If you're a busy professional and ready to make passive income from real estate investing, then go to crestworthcapital.com, where you'll be able to download a free copy of our ebook to help you get started today. Until next week, happy investing.